I cannot overstate just how much we are getting in our own way. We could be happy, we could be joyful, we could be peaceful, but at this point, it is as if our ego just does not want that for us. Now, I feel like I'm going to have to do a whole series on ego and colonialism. I'm just going to start here. The ego is the part of us that resonates most with colonialism, capitalism, oppression, dominance culture. It forms its own identity or sense of self in separation to other things. It says, you are this, therefore I am that, or I am this and therefore you are less than that. The ego is the aspect of us that wants to compete. The ego is fearful, it seeks control. Of course, it operates purely as an intellectual faculty. Now, of course, these things in and of themselves are not bad, but when it functions at the excess that we see today, it does become a problem. The way I see it is this. The ego is the vessel through which the colonial capitalist man-made system moves through. It works through that vessel or uses us through that vessel. But then on the flip side, we have presence through which divine purpose, universal love, or God, if you prefer, decides to work through.
In the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. The same that was in the beginning with God, all things were made by Him. And without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. Now the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. He was in the world, and the world was made by Him, and the world knew Him not. He came unto His own, and His own received Him not. But as many as received Him, to them gave He power to become sons of God. Jah Rastafari, Haile Selassie the First, who was born not of the will of man, nor of the will of flesh, but of the will of God, full of grace and truth. Know that Word was made flesh and dwell among I and I and I and I. And we beheld His glory, the glories of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth.
I don't want to sit here and say ego bad, presence good, but ego bad, presence good. Let me say this, ego limiting, presence liberatory. Now, here's the thing. In order to be present, we have to trust. We have to be in a state of trust, and we have to be in a state of relaxation. Now, I don't know about you, but in this society right about now, with just the height of the bullshit we are seeing day to day, it is very fucking difficult to trust and relax. Kind of like colonialism doesn't want us to be present. Doesn't want us to be in the flow states that we can kind of like align with our purpose and be peaceful and happy and good. Of course, we know this. Colonialism essentially primes us to operate through ego, which in turn not only hurts us, but benefits the colonial capitalist system because it can use us. Now, I want you to think of it like this. If we think about presence, you might think of like a spiritual practice or meditation, mindfulness. But of course, presence literally just means to be present, to be here. So when we're not present, it literally means that we are not at the doorway of ourselves. And so anything can get in, including the narratives of the colonial capitalist system. We'll say things like, oh, I'm going to focus on academics instead of art because academics are more respectable. Or we might feel that we need to somehow learn how to make ourselves appear to be more confident or louder so that we aren't potentially perceived as this weird introvert at the party or the business meeting or the conference. In recognizing that society is constantly attacking us through this symbolic violence that says that certain ways of being or thinking or behaving are desirable and some are not, we literally self-mutilate. We suppress who we are, hoping that it's going to make us feel better. But of course it never does, at least in the long run. And yet, what is so crazy to me is that life was literally designed to be so reciprocal, symbiotic. It was literally designed this way. We somehow have flowers that grow and produce nectar, which bees then take, and somehow we get to eat this honey that tastes like gold. And then we have these fruits that literally grow on trees. Just take mangoes. They grow on trees and then drop off onto the ground, literally waiting for us to indulge. Like, hey, I was literally created to be consumed by you. Life is so abundant and perfectly balanced by design. And yet we somehow believe that we are an exception to this rule, and that for some reason we are not designed to also fit perfectly within this ecosystem by just literally being who we are. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, well, I mean, we're not fruit or animals, and I guess what the difference is between humans and fruit is that we are here to grow spiritually, and I've talked about this quite a bit. Listen, mangoes aren't born mangoes. They start off of seeds and they grow. The difference is mangoes don't start off as seeds hoping to grow up to become apples. So instead of being desirable to our people, which literally just requires us to be who we are, we say, oh, fuck the people in my fractal and let me try and be a good fit for society or be desirable for society. Society is really just this mixed collective of equally confused people who then look at each other and want to judge them on their ability to almost kind of like be ignorant to their own confusion and see how much they can conform to what we've collectively agreed is desirable amidst our shared amnesia. What can happen is we can even get this authentic feeling or inclination towards something and then say, you know what? Nah, just ignore it. It must be wrong. And we push it away for what we feel the dominant culture will accept, because we don't feel that this thing that we are feeling to do fits within that in a safe enough box or in a safe enough package. And I think the most heartbreaking thing is when we get in the habit of doing that, it's like we're literally saying to God or the universe, like, I know you created everything in existence. Like, I wouldn't be here. Nothing would be here without you. But I kind of feel that we need to go our separate ways, because the things that you're telling me to do, I don't know. You know, the colonizing capitalist system? I mean, I'm not trying to undermine you or anything, but it just feels a little bit more legit. Whew. And listen, I'm shaking my head at myself too, because the struggle is really fucking real. But again, I just want to add that as I'm kind of calling myself out and calling the rest of us out, it's also not about trying to find what is rebellious and what goes against the dominant culture to say that you're doing that and that then you are in this flow state or this rebellious state. Because actually, we might be here to do things that are acceptable by the dominant culture. All I'm saying is we should be taking extra care and extra space and extra time to actually figure out if that's what it is or not.